The two most important aspects of achieving financial freedom. That's what we're going to discuss in this video. Let's get right into it. But quickly before we do, welcome and thanks so much for joining me. If you're new here or if you haven't done so yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button right down below the video and talk about the two most important aspects of achieving financial freedom. Now, you've probably heard about this many times before. Financial freedom is one of these hot button issues that is trending around right now. Many people are saying with this new digital aged economy, they're basically saying, I want to work for myself, I want to be a business owner, I want to work from home at my new schedule, and I want to achieve financial freedom. But as we all know, because we've talked about this previously in other videos, financial freedom is actually very different for every single person. In fact, financial freedom for me is different than financial freedom for you, and financial freedom for you is going to be different than financial freedom for maybe your siblings, maybe your parents, maybe your best friend, maybe your neighbor. It is all different for every single person, simply because financial freedom is basically replacing your earned income that you would be getting from a job so that you can basically do whatever you desire and you don't need to report to a 9-to-5 job, the daily grind to generate income so that you can ultimately pay for your life, but rather your other income sources would be giving you the financial freedom. But we've talked about that in far more depth in other videos. In this one, I want to talk about the two most important aspects that actually relate to financial freedom and how you can actually get there way faster. So let's get into it, and I want to talk about this, but of course, we also need to remind that financial freedom is, there's like multiple different ways that you can get there. You've got yourself some financial freedom. That's not really how it works. There are multiple different ways that you could achieve financial freedom, which is so cool about it, because literally it could be a different formula for literally millions of people, right? It's kind of similar. The formulas are relatively similar, but at the same time, they're also very different. So it's different for everybody, but there are a couple aspects here that are incredibly important that can ultimately help you achieve financial freedom exponentially faster, right? Well, what are they? Let's talk about these one at a time. Number one, multiple income sources or multiple streams of income. This can be given multiple different names, but essentially having multiple streams of income. Now, how can you actually do this? Now, I just want to make sure that this is not understood as multiple jobs. No, in fact, I would say never ever get multiple jobs. But of course, I don't know your situation. I am not an advocate for multiple jobs. I think that is a terrible use of time. But again, that's just my opinion. I'm talking about multiple income streams, multiple streams of income, multiple sources of income, whatever you want to call it. It's all essentially the same thing. Just different sources of income that continue to pay you on a regular basis. Maybe it's on a monthly basis, maybe it's quarterly, maybe it's semi-annual, but either way, a reliable source of income that continues to fill up your pockets and your bank accounts on a regular basis. So this could be achieved in a variety of different ways. Literally, there's so many different ways out there. There's thousands and thousands of different ways that you could generate extra income on the side. A couple well-known ways that you could do this, maybe like rental income. Maybe you own a house and maybe you own two houses, or maybe you own a big house and you have a couple spare rooms, or maybe a spare basement or something like that. You rent it out and all of a sudden your tenant or the person who's renting from you is all of a sudden giving you a check every single month. Month over month over month, you're getting a check from that person. Again, that is another source of income, right? And again, this can be achieved in so many different ways. There's so many different ways that you can get another source of income, but ultimately it comes down to multiple sources of income, getting multiple sources of income so that you can exponentially grow your income. So rather than you just reporting to a job 5 days a week, working 40 hours a week, and your income is somewhat capped right there because you can only put in so much time, well, ultimately, if you get another source or two of income, well, all of a sudden, boom, you've just exponentially grown your income, right? Maybe you're earning, I don't know, for example, let's just say you're earning $5,000 a month at your job. What if you could all of a sudden grow your income by an extra $1,000 a month by maybe some rental income thrown in, or maybe who knows what, royalties or commissions, or who knows what. I mean, literally, there's so many different ways that you could expand your income. You maybe buy some products and resell them online. You have some kind of service that you provide where you can generate in another $1,000 every single month. Again, more sources of income, therefore throwing off additional cash flow, which ultimately gets you to financial freedom even more quickly, right? Kind of get what I'm saying there? So multiple streams of income is incredibly important to exponentially grow your wealth and or achieve financial freedom far more quickly. So just keep an open mind to multiple sources of income. If you start implementing this, you start doing research, and you start finding some methods that are within kind of your wheelhouse, you can start finding some really cool methods in which you can start achieving multiple sources of income and start really, really growing your income on a monthly basis. All right, so that is number one. Number two, and again, this is another one that we've talked about many times here on the channel, but I want to hit it on it again because this is another key aspect of achieving financial freedom quickly, and that is passive income. Now, passive income is another holy grail item when it comes to achieving financial freedom and ultimately getting just freedom as a whole, right? So what is passive income? Essentially putting in initial work. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of people think that getting passive income is essentially just pushing a button and boom, you've got yourself a bunch of passive income coming in every month. Well, I mean, maybe in some very rare instances that actually works, but no, for the most part, you need to put in a lot of initial work to establish passive income. And then eventually over time, maybe the time could be maybe a month, maybe it's 3 months, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year, or maybe it's even longer. But eventually, after you put in the initial work of setting up the passive source of income, eventually you can kind of step away, slowly step away from whatever it is that you're working on. And just like a well-oiled machine at a factory or somewhere else, it's just like that. It basically just continues to operate. Well-oiled machine, it just continues operating day after day, day and night, and all of a sudden it throws off cash flow to you. Therefore, it is then a passive source of income. Now, one more misconception about passive sources of income. Many people also believe that passive sources of income don't require any additional work, right? You just kind of let it go and then it just operates by itself for the next 25 years and gives you all kinds of money. Well, again, that's not really how they work. Passive sources of income take a lot of initial work to get set up, but once you get it set up, you can kind of slowly step away and then it operates by itself. But you still need to check in on that passive source of income, maybe on a monthly basis, maybe it's on a bi-monthly basis, maybe it's every quarter, maybe it's semi-annually. Every so often, you will still need to check up on that passive source of income just to make sure that it's still working efficiently, it's still working well, it's still throwing off cash flow. Maybe you can refine the process and make it more efficient to ultimately give you even more cash flow on a regular basis, right? So that is one of the main misconceptions about passive income, is that many people think, oh, I can just get it set up today, I can walk away tomorrow and never look at it again. Well, if you do that, you can probably almost be guaranteed that it's going to end up just kind of failing eventually over time. You've got to still be there and nurse the thing along a little bit. Sometimes it requires very little assistance from you going on into the future. Sometimes it takes a little bit more work, but ultimately you still need to be there and assist it, nurse it along every so often. But once you get it set up and it's rolling, it usually doesn't take a whole lot of effort after that point to keep this thing rolling and just continue to throw off cash flow on a regular basis. Maybe it's weekly, maybe it's monthly, maybe it's every other month, quarterly, something like that. But ultimately, if you set up a good, well-oiled passive income source, you should be able to get some pretty nice cash flow out of that thing on a regular basis. Ultimately, you could also say this would be a multiple sources of income type of situation, because there you go. You ultimately have a passive source of income throwing off cash flow on a regular basis, and therefore it is another source of income. See how all this is intertwined, how all of this is related to each other, and ultimately it all comes down to more money in your bank account, more money in your pocket every single month, which ultimately leads to more financial freedom faster, right? So can you kind of see how all of this is intertwined? It's all related to each other. Make sense? So in my opinion, based on everything when it comes down to financial freedom, if you want to achieve financial freedom quickly, the best thing I could say, start exploring and doing research on multiple sources of income in industries or fields or things that you're knowledgeable about, something that you're knowledgeable about, you're talented with, you're skilled, you have a lot of knowledge and you have a lot of interest in that. You can find something, I guarantee it, you can find something that could allow you to have a multiple sources of income type of situation. Then ultimately the goal would be get it into a passive source of income where you don't need to actively work on it, but rather it just works by itself with just very minimal effort on your part. When you get to that point, you are now cooking with gas, right? You're cooking with gas and you can just kind of step away from the thing a little bit and start working on more multiple sources of income. And ultimately you can get to the point where you have multiple passive sources of income and now you're rolling, right? Now it's only a matter of time until you achieve financial freedom, where you can probably, in most instances, quit your job if you just decide to do. And then ultimately, boom, you've achieved financial freedom, right? So, we've talked about financial freedom many times in other videos, but again, financial freedom really briefly is simply deciding and figuring out how much you have in monthly expenses on an ongoing basis. Maybe it's $3,000 a month, maybe it's $1,000, maybe it's $10,000. It's different for everybody. Figuring out how much you have in monthly expenses and getting passive sources of income to throw off enough cash flow every single month that you are offsetting all of your monthly expenses. Therefore, that would then be the definition of financial freedom. Your passive income sources pay for your expenses on an ongoing basis. Therefore, you don't need to report to a 9-to-5 job anymore if you don't desire to do so, right? So anyway, that is the end goal for so many people. Anyway, hope this helps you out. Thanks again for your support. I truly appreciate it. Subscribe down below. And of course, I will always be back with more videos like this, talking about multiple sources of income, passive sources of income, talking about financial freedom, strategies, many different things about investing, real estate, stocks, crypto, you name it. We talk about all of it right here on the channel. So thanks again for your support. Subscribe down below, share the videos with your friends, family, social media, and I'll be back later.